Greetings, movie lovers, and welcome back to the movie theater lobby for our third get-together. My name is Brandon.
And I'm Leia.
Episode 3, Leia. What do you think about that?
I'm pretty excited to talk about this.
Yeah, me too. This is going to be a fun one, I think. Kind of a big tone change from our previous episode.
Oh, absolutely.
But just wanted to mention that here at the lobby, we aim to create a place to chat about movies and hopefully learn a bit more about the world within and beyond the screen, and maybe find a new perspective along the way. As we get started, grab your snacks and drinks, and wait, Leia, I found this briefcase at the airport.
What?
Today? Yeah.
Why were you at the airport?
They have the best coffee.
Oh, it's true.
Okay.
Absolutely, yep.
So I went through customs because I went international. The international side has the absolute best coffee.
Well, of course.
So you got to go through all that rigmarole. Real pain in the ass. Nonetheless, great coffee. And I mean, I know they always say, don't take luggage that doesn't belong to you.
But you found a briefcase.
Don't leave luggage unattended. And it's exactly because jackasses like me will come by and take it. I didn't put anything in it because it's locked. I can't seem to unlock it. But I'm kind of curious to see what's in there. So let's go ahead and see if we can break into this little baby and see if there's something interesting inside. Maybe something useful we chat about.
Dumb and Dumber.
Dumb and Dumber.
I would have to be a lowlife to go rooting around in somebody else's private property. Is it locked? Yeah, really well.
Okay, all right. So enough of that foolishness, I guess. Sort of appropriate for the movie on topic because it's nothing but foolishness.
Absolutely.
But let's get on this plot. Let's get people introduced to what's happening in our chosen movie for the week.
Sounds good.
So Dumb and Dumber, a comedy released in 1994, ages ago at this. In fact, 30 years ago now.
It was actually at the end of 1994.
Oh.
Internationally, it was opened in 1995.
Oh, man. So almost 30 years, I guess.
Depends where you are.
Yeah. I mean, looking at those small discrepancies here. Anyway, in Dumb and Dumber, we meet a limo driver named Lloyd Christmas, played by Jim Carrey, who's en route as we meet him to pick up his next or maybe first client for the day. While Lloyd is driving en route to his destination, his limo crosses paths with a man in a dog costume. Something unusual you might see during a drive in the city. But this man in the dog costume is leaving a restaurant with a doggy bag of food, walking to a van that's been converted to look like a dog. Very dog themed, this fella. This odd guy is heading toward a dog show, and his name is Harry Dunn, played by Jeff Daniels. In his van is a literal van load of dogs, all primed and cleaned and cut and trimmed for this dog show.
That he did himself.
Mutt cuts, right? I believe that's who he works for.
Yep.
But before arriving at the dog show, he decided these dogs would best perform on a full stomach. So he got them all lunch.
Yeah, he ordered that himself because he speaks to dogs.
Yeah, he's got a way with dogs. He knows their language. Dog whisperer sort of fella. So with these sandwiches in tow and careening through town, the sheepdog Vanine, like canine, Vanine?
Oh my God.
No? You don't like that? Okay.
It's getting dumb in here.
Whew, I think that's the purpose, right?
Yeah.
The canine van, the Vanine, tosses the dogs about with their meat-filled munchies and, of course, ketchup and mustard. Because what is a delicious sandwich without ketchup and mustard?
Absolutely.
Before Harry gets the dogs safely to their destination, we check in again with Lloyd. He's finally arrived at the home of his client, a woman named Mary Swanson, played by Lauren Holly, whom Lloyd immediately becomes smitten with.
Yeah.
Love
Instant.
at first sight kind of thing, right? Lloyd, also a terrible driver, chaotically travels through the town with Mary in the back seat. And let's be honest, neither Harry nor Lloyd should have a driver's license. Anyway, finally, Harry drops off the dogs, who are a complete mess. I mean, they are...
You don't see it, though, until he opens the door and the lady's asking for her dog.
Yes, the woman at the dog show...
They're perfect.
When the van opens, there is a complete surprise to the both of them. The dogs are trashed. They're covered in ketchup and mustard. It's a real disaster. I mean, it doesn't change their haircuts or their nail trims. So
what does he say?
You know, on second thought, you might just want to run a comb through them.
I don't think that's going to solve it, but give it a shot anyway. After the dog debacle, we check in again with Lloyd, who somehow managed to get Mary mostly safely to the airport, aside from possibly some mental trauma. And as he does, he behaves like a how should I put it? An ignorant creep, perhaps.
That's what he is.
Yeah, he kind of is.
He embodies himself.
Not to excuse anything on his behavior, but really...
Not sure he knows what's going on.
Yeah, not understanding what boundaries are, I suppose. Anyway, as he begins to leave, he crashes his limo because he can't help but stare at Mary on the way out. That's when he notices she forgets her briefcase. Being the full-service limo driver that Lloyd is, complete professional, of course, he decides there's no way he's going to let one of his clients leave their bag behind. So he rushes inside.
He'd do this for any client.
For any client, obviously.
Yeah.
So he rushes inside to grab the briefcase. While he's doing so, this is where we meet two other principal characters we'll meet quite a bit along the way. Shay and Mental, I believe, are their names.
That's their nicknames.
Their nicknames, yes. Not that we know this yet, but two sort of muscle for hire types.
They look like muscle for hire.
Exactly right. So Lloyd splits the uprights, goes right between them, grabs that briefcase, and runs off, with the muscle for hire standing there looking completely stupefied. With briefcase in hand, Lloyd now rushes toward the terminal where he suspects Mary is probably going to. All he knows is that she's going to Aspen. He runs down the jetway and promptly falls off the end. Despite the fact that most commercial airlines have doors that would prevent anyone from falling off the jetway, Lloyd manages it.
Sir, you can't go in there. It's okay. I'm the limo driver.
Yes, of course. Lloyd has it all covered with his all-access limo driver badge.
Yeah.
So Lloyd with Mary's briefcase and Harry with no dogs both arrive back at the apartment that they share. And while both admit to each other having lost their jobs, they hear a knock at the door. It turns out our two goons from earlier have tracked down Lloyd. The fellas think that they forgot to pay the gas bill, which is apparently something that they do quite often, it seems, and that the people at the door are there to collect. So, being ever so sensible, they decide to sneak out of their apartment. Shay and Mental, the two cutthroats, break in, kill the boy's bird, Petey, to send a message.
Poor Petey.
Which Shay thinks that they're not going to get that message looking around the disheveled apartment.
I don't think he's going to get that message, Joe. I mean, the guy's got worms in his living room.
After hours of hiding out, Lloyd and Harry return and decide it's a good time to get some food and beer and snacks and whatever else crosses their feeble little minds. Lloyd goes out to get the essentials.
Right.
Right? On the way, he happens to lose his wallet and all of the goods, both essential and non, that he managed to procure, and comes home completely empty-handed, also finding out tragically that Harry's pet bird, Petey, has died via, of course, the absolute natural phenomenon of its head falling off.
Yeah, its head just fell off.
Yeah, it just happens when birds get too old.
It happens when they get too old.
Yeah, exactly right. At this point, Lloyd completely breaks down and decides he's tired of living in Providence, Rhode Island, which is where they are. He's tired of creditors. He wants a better life. He's tired of losing his job, tired of being chased by the gas man.
The gas man.
And semi-manipulatively, he decides this is a good excuse for him to see Mary again. So he suggests to Harry, let's pack it up and drive to Aspen. Let's relocate, new life.
Naturally.
Right? So Harry finally agrees, and they load up the Van Nuys. Can't stop.
It's actually an Econoline, but,
Well, it's a Van Nuys for this purpose.
Okay.
They leave a note for the gas man saying they're headed to Aspen, and the Dumb and Dumber road trip is now off and running.
Officially.
Harry and Lloyd are now leaving behind their old life in favor of new adventure, so let's follow their example this once. Probably not in anything else that they would do.
No, don't ever follow any of their other examples ever.
And leave this plot behind, yeah?
Yeah, nice.
All right. Thank you so much. So Leia, we've got the plot kind of figured out, up to the point where the adventure begins. So let's maybe look at our principal cast and the people behind the screen who helped bring us this fantastic little adventure. Who would you like to start with?
Let's start with our two main characters.
Two mains, as in Lloyd and Harry,
Yeah,
huh?
Lloyd and Harry.
Well, let's just kind of go with Lloyd.
Name's Christmas. Lloyd Christmas.
Lloyd.
The first one we see, let's get into a little bit about Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
I mean, he's Canadian.
He is Canadian.
That's something.
Mm-hmm. He had a tough life growing up.
He did, right. Yeah. Him and his family, his siblings and his parents were literally homeless for a while, living out of their Volkswagen, I believe. And as a teenager, him and his brother were working security and janitorial overnight. At a factory. It's also worth noting that in the movie, you'll see Lloyd, Jim Carrey's character, with a chipped tooth. Jim Carrey had a chipped tooth for all of his, it's just capped. And the way that happened is when he was in school, there was a bully who would pick on him and actually cannonballed onto his face and broke that tooth. Yeah, so aside from having a bully and being homeless and working janitorial and security overnight at this factory, it was a rough go of things for the Carrey family.
Yeah.
But yeah, he got his, I guess you could say it was his big start on In Living Color.
Well, even before that, so he moved to LA when he was just 17.
Oh, right.
So really young. But he got a regular gig at the Comedy Store.
Yeah,
that was kind of his first go at comedy. It's kind of what he wanted to do. And he actually even impressed comedian Rodney Dangerfield.
Right.
And he impressed him so much that he actually signed Jim to open for an entire season.
Of Rodney's tour, right?
Rodney's tour.
Stand-up gigs, yeah.
Yeah. And then Jim played an alien on the movie called Earth Girls Are Easy.
Oh, yeah.
With co-star Damon Wayans, who has a brother named Keenan Ivory Wayans.
Yeah, quite the star-powered family.
Yes. And he was putting together In Living Color. So then Damon Wayans told his brother Keenan, hey, check this guy out.
Right.
And that's how he got his big start.
That's a good way to go. I was kind of always an SNL guy growing up, kid, I guess, because
yeah, I got here.
You know what I mean. But when In Living Color hit, it was kind of a whole different kind of sketch comedy, and it was great. I loved it. It was
great. Yeah, I think it's interesting when we start looking at these movies and the connections that these actors make.
Yeah, that
they didn't probably even realize they were making when they made them. Like when he did Earth Girls Were Easy, I don't think he imagined that would lead to where it led.
No,
but it happens a lot in Hollywood. You either get lucky and you find somebody or you know somebody or you don't.
Well, and who would have thought at the time that In Living Color would go on to be so... I mean, it didn't last for as long.
It itself was not... I mean, it was good, but it didn't last forever.
No,
you know?
but
he in it
yeah,
really sold it.
As a historical, cultural point, it was very significant to a lot of comedy.
Absolutely, yeah.
So after In Living Color, he went on, and of course he did a few other shows or movies as well. I believe he was in like Once Bitten, which is like a real lowball comedy, pseudo horror kind of thing.
Yeah, his first film, but even before all that, the first film he was ever in was called Rubber Face. Did you ever see any clips of that?
I've never seen it, but I've heard of it.
So I saw a clip of it when I was doing research on this. Oh my gosh, there's this scene where they're putting hats on and they're doing voices. Right. And it was like him and this woman. And it was so Jim Carrey. And then they would cut to this woman doing it and it was cringy. And I'm like,
really?
Ooh. And then they go back to him again. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. That's Jim Carrey. And they go back to her again. I'm like, ooh. Well, it's just so hard to watch.
Obviously Jim Carrey is known for that real rubbery face of his. And when he was getting his stand-up start, he focused primarily on impressions. So I imagine he used that ability to kind of mold his face.
Yeah. Several of those clips were interesting because he's so young in that.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was largely thanks to In Living Color that he got this role anyway. Obviously, the Farrelly brothers were told by the producer that they were supposed to get actors from a very specific list that the producer wanted. And nobody would agree to the role.
They went through hundreds.
And the Farrelly brothers have even found out later on that the scripts never made it past so many people's agents.
Yeah, the agents just totally blocked them.
Yeah. Just total cock blocks. A lot of actors had said, hey, why didn't you ever put me in one of your movies? And the Farrelly brothers were like, We tried.
Yeah.
Didn't get past your agent, though.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jim Carrey was recommended to them based on the idea that he's the white guy from In Living Color, which there were other white guys on In Living Color, but I think he was probably the most notable.
He was, for sure.
Yeah, of course. And then, he went on to Ace Ventura. Of course, everybody knows Ace Ventura. Obviously, The Mask. And those three movies, right? Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, all came out.
Yeah, they all went straight to #1 within a year.
Yeah,
they were all around the same. I think they all came out in '94.
Yeah, all '94. So quite a year for Jim Carrey.
Yeah, he was flying high.
Busy fella. But a few other things that he's notable for, obviously, Batman Forever, which some of us may want to forget.
He was pretty good in it,
He
though.
was
Let's
good.
be honest.
He was a fun over-characterization of the Riddler.
Yeah.
The Cable Guy, which I love.
I love the
movie.
Cable Guy. The Cable Guy.
Oh, man. Liar, Liar.
Such a good one, too.
Another good one.
Me,
Truman
Myself,
Show.
and Irene.
Me, Myself, and Irene, which another Farrelly Brothers film, right?
He also did a lot of serious stuff, too.
He did.
The Number 23, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless
Yep,
Mind.
yep. Truman Show, I guess you
Truman
kind of
Show.
put in that kind of hybrid area there. And then, of course, who would forget How the Grinch Stole Christmas?
Yeah,
I mean,
the Grinch.
probably the most
The
perfect
Grinch.
representation of the Grinch.
You think of the Grinch, you
Yeah.
think of Jim Carrey's
Yeah.
The Grinch.
I mean, I was always an animated Grinch guy.
yeah,
I still do like
I still
the
do.
animated
Yeah.
Grinch film. But as much as I probably never wanted to like the live action How the Grinch Stole Christmas
It
movie,
happened.
damn, it's a good Christmas flick.
Because of him.
And
yeah.
I'm not a Christmas guy. And then finally, let's mention just the Sonic the Hedgehog, because it's probably one of his more recent familiarizations
Yeah.
for a lot of people.
He was also in some things that people may not know he was in,
Oh,
like little things. Like he was a guy who was applying for a job in the office.
oh, right. Yeah, I
And
remember
it was just
that.
a very short, I don't know, maybe 30 seconds, a minute
Yeah.
where he was in it and never again.
Oh, is it like season 6 or 7, somewhere in there? I don't remember.
He was applying for
Michael Scott's job.
Scott's job.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. He played a Santa in Drunk History.
Oh, well, good for him.
Yeah, which was very Grinch-esque,
Yeah. Hey,
honestly.
linking holidays back together again.
Right. And he was also in, I don't know if you know who The Weeknd is.
The Weeknd, the music,
The music,
musician?
yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah.
He was a voice in one of his latest music videos, Out of Time.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, he played a doctor at the end.
Ah, getting those high-powered roles
He even had
now.
his face in there and everything. Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah.
All
So that was
right.
his most latest thing that he did.
go Jim.
Yeah.
Keep on bringing home those roles,
Mm-hmm.
boy. And I think the last thing we'll mention, unless you've got anything else on Jim Carrey, is that someone else we will be mentioning here in a minute, but he did very briefly marry Lauren Holly.
So briefly, it's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
I think it lasted
A
not
year.
even a year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, hey, it was a brief love affair.
Yeah.
Let's move on from Jim. Of course, he gets all the coverage. Everybody
always
knows
does,
Jim
yeah.
Carrey. So let's move on and give some love to our buddy Jeff Daniels.
He
here.
was the wild card, the surprise.
Yeah, he was the one that most people involved in this film did not want.
Yeah.
Aside from Jim and the Farrelly brothers.
Yep. They all were totally on board, and he was on board too.
Yeah.
But nobody else wanted him.
Yeah.
His agents didn't even want him to do it.
Yeah, his agents didn't want him to
They
do
even
it.
sabotaged him to get him to not take the role.
The producers didn't want him. His agents didn't want him to take the role.
They even trialed him when he
Yes.
was reading the script for the movie. Like when he was doing his lines, he was there for a week trial.
Yeah,
They had somebody on staff to take his place.
The first full week, they shot, I think they said just a few scenes with Jim, and the rest was just him solo.
him. Yeah.
Because they were expecting him to just can him
Yeah.
and move on to someone
And they
else.
couldn't because he was pretty
good.
Yeah.
I understand their skepticism.
Oh, absolutely.
Because
Against Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
All the stuff, the background he has.
A very straight-laced,
Yeah.
very dramatic
Mhm.
actor put into this exceedingly
Goofy.
over-the-top,
Yeah.
goofy, ridiculous comedy role.
Yeah.
But he took it. How did the producers try to sabotage him?
The producers offered him a very low amount of money to do this.
$50,000.
That's all they offered him. And when we tell you that's low, that's compared to what they ended up ultimately giving Jim Carrey,
Yeah.
which was $7 million.
$7 million. That's a big salary.
On a movie budget of $16 million,
Yeah.
$7 million went to Jim. And
Mm-hmm.
they offered Jeff Daniels $50,000, hoping he'd say no. Oh, and he did it.
Oh,
he did it.
I love that even more.
I know. He's like, you know what? I know you don't want me to do this. I want to do this.
Yeah.
I'll take it.
He told his agents that he was going to do this movie, and they kept insisting this is a mistake. It's going to ruin your career. And he said, well, if it's a mistake, it's mine to make.
Yeah.
So
He really appreciates how acting is a full spectrum
Mhm.
kind of a thing where you can't have seriousness without comedy.
Right.
And he hadn't done comedy yet, and he was getting bored.
yeah,
He's like, let me try something new for a change. And so, that's kind of why he wanted this role so bad, especially opposite Jim Carrey. I mean,
oh yeah,
if Jim Carrey said that he learned a lot and really fed off of Jeff Daniels because of his background and Jeff Daniels' experience.
Sure.
But I feel like Jeff Daniels also got so much from working with Jim and learning about comedy and timing. And those two really, I think, learned a lot from each other and really appreciated their friendship.
Yeah, I think they really learned a lot from each other, which is a great way to build a working on-screen relationship.
Yeah, which worked really well. P.S. by the way.
Yeah, it did. But I mean, aside from the troubles he had getting in, he obviously had a very, at this point, even fairly accomplished list of credits to his name. Nothing really super breakout, but he had done a lot of work. He has worked Broadway in the past. He's had a lot of roles in TV and movies. He's even a fairly accomplished musician, to be truthful.
Wasn't he in a movie with Woody Allen?
The Purple Rose of Cairo.
Yeah.
I think that was sort of before Dumb and Dumber, that was sort of the movie he was, I guess, known for.
Yeah, it was kind of a major film at the time.
Yeah.
Honestly, I've never seen it.
No, I haven't.
I feel like
either.
I should, but
at some point, probably. But what I know him best from is Arachnophobia.
Yeah, because that's a horror movie, and
I can't stop the horror.
Yeah,
it just keeps coming my way, and I'm not turning it down. And then he was also in Gettysburg. He had a role there.
So that was one of his favorite roles. Actually.
Yeah.
Gettysburg, and then it was a sequel, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember what the sequel was called. I feel like a fool.
Generals and
Gods and Generals.
Gods and Generals. I think something so. Like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I recall reading, and I don't know how. I didn't really back this up in validity, but I did recall hearing that he's sort of a fan of war history. Like he enjoys that sort of stuff. A lot of men his
age are.
Right, of course. It's just a thing that happens.
Yeah.
And of course, he was also in Speed.
Yeah.
Wherein he played another character named Harry.
Crazy.
So I guess really attracted to those Harry names.
Most recently, he was in a show called American Rust.
Oh.
Yeah, 19 episodes of American Rust. I haven't seen it, but I heard it had some really good reviews.
Yeah, I've not even heard of it. So
that's his most recent work.
I mean, these days it's hard to keep track of everything that's coming out. There's so damn much all the time.
So many different streaming services with their own stuff going on too. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it kind of wraps up what I got for Jeff.
He won his leading actor Emmy Award for The Newsroom the night before principal photography of Dumb and Dumber.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he won this Emmy for, The Newsroom.
Right.
And the night before, he went and did this photography scene for Dumb and Dumber. It's like going from one extreme to the other, and I think that's why his agents were just so surprised and really trying hard not to get him to do this, because they're like, why? Like, you got an Emmy.
You're getting acclaim now.
Yes.
Stop what you're doing.
I mean, a leading actor Emmy, and what are you doing?
I feel like it was really appropriate to get a dramatic actor in his role, though, because between the two, I would say that Harry is the more straight man of the two. They're both completely ridiculous. Yeah. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I feel like Harry is the more semi-serious one of the two.
You almost couldn't have them both being Jim Carreys, because they'd be fighting for screen time and attention. And it's not that Harry, I didn't feel like he needed to fight for screen time, but it gave Jim, I think, a feeling of, I don't need to fight for screen time. But he also would like to step back and let Jeff Daniels get some screen time too, because they had that kind of relationship. You know? So
they had that trade-off.
I think it worked really well.
Yeah. It was a great duo after all.
Yeah.
Let's move on to just a few things to say about Lauren Holly.
Yeah. Jim Carrey's 1 year marriage.
1 year marriage, as blissful or chaotic as it may have been. But she, of course, also is an accomplished actor with an extensive resume. She had her breakout role in the TV series Picket Fences.
88 episodes of Picket Fences.
That was
She was in there a long
man.
time, yeah.
Wasn't she in all but one of them, if I remember correctly?
Probably.
I don't remember what the exact statistic was, but she definitely had a big role in that. NCIS.
She was in NCIS.
Yeah, she was in NCIS for a while.
She does a lot of TV, I've noticed.
Yeah, she does.
Dramatic TV.
Dramatic TV, as well as the series Motive. One I haven't seen, but she had a pretty good run on that one as well. But she has been in other movies, of course. The one that I know her from the most is Dragon, the Bruce Lee story.
Yeah.
Which I really enjoyed as a semi-fabricated biopic. So.
She Bruce Lee's wife. Yeah. So I thought it was kind of interesting that there's a fight scene in Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
And he wipes his brow and does something, and it's a Bruce Lee move.
Yeah, it's a very Bruce Lee move. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was just in that movie, like the year or two before that or something.
Yeah, I don't
like
remember precisely when it was, but yeah.
So I don't know if it was a nod or not, but it was funny.
Yeah, I mean, it may have been a coincidental nod.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and she was in What Women Want with Mel Gibson as well. I think that was kind of her other big notable
What do women
role.
Want?
I still haven't
Did they ever
figured it out.
Did they ever find it out?
No, I was
in the movie?
hoping that movie would tell me.
It didn't tell
but it
anybody.
didn't.
Shit.
It's not working.
It's not working.
Somebody figure it out and let me know.
Yeah, she was also in a show called Family Law. That's the most recent one she's been in.
Okay.
It was 30 episodes of that. So that was a pretty big one for her too.
Sure.
Yeah. You know, she turned down the role played by Courtney Cox in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
Oh, did she really?
Mm-hmm. Yep. But then later co-starred with Jim Carrey in Dumb and Dumber. So
Yeah.
she still did a film with Jim Carrey.
Still had her chance after all.
Still had her chance after all.
Imagine had they met in Ace Ventura, would their marriage have lasted longer?
Nah, no, probably not.
Probably not.
No.
I don't know what brought their marriage to an end, but I don't think being in Ace Ventura would have saved it.
No, I don't think so.
I know she eventually married another Canadian man.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they adopted some children in Canada, which is...
Oh, wait, she has dual citizenship now. Yeah.
Yep.
She likes Canadians. I like Canadians too. So
yeah, hey, Canadians got a thing about it. I wish I were Canadian. Boy, do I.
Boy, howdy.
Boy, howdy.
I'd even take the snow.
Sure, why not, eh? We do live close enough, I suppose.
Yeah, I
Can we
guess.
just get like honorary Canadian citizenship?
You want to sponsor us?
Yeah, I'll be good, I promise. Anyway.
That's all I have on Lauren Holly.
Yeah, I don't have a whole lot, unfortunately. She seems largely private, despite her status. So, but let's kind of wrap up our cast and crew here by mentioning the Farrelly brothers, Peter and Bobby, together known as the Farrelly brothers. They've worked together on a lot, obviously mostly after this, because this was their first film, which is really quite a notch in your cap to say that Dumb and Dumber is your first. If you're a comedy
duo, this is working really well.
That's a big notch.
Yeah. But Bobby does more producing now, right? And Peter does more of the writing and
yeah, I know they
directing.
They are sort of going different ways. They're
a team, but
they're still
he
a
does,
team,
I think, more
but-
producing. Yeah.
Yeah. I know that they've worked together writing and directing on There's Something About Mary, Me, Myself, Irene, obviously Dumb and Dumber, Shallow Hal, and then a movie that I love that they didn't write, but they did direct, Kingpin. So that's,
That one didn't get as much acclaim as they had hoped, I think.
it didn't. It's got a big cult following, but it's not one I think that's forever mainstream popular.
It's not like Dumb and Dumber.
No, certainly not like Dumb and Dumber. But
It's a high bar to follow.
yeah, I still don't mind going back to that well now and again. Well, let's kind of go from acclaim of the individuals and talk about the acclaim of the film as a whole. So you said the budget was what?
16 million.
Yeah, 16 million. And it grossed worldwide 247 million.
That's what I have too, yeah.
So that is a large
and
payday.
it made back what it cost to make the film during their opening weekend.
Did it really?
16.4 million on opening weekend.
For a comedy movie.
For a comedy, it's incredible.
Go get it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it was number one for its opening weekend, and obviously to make that sort of money, it would have had to have been. So, all right, great for this film. I mean, it's off to a good start.
Yeah. I mean, sadly, it's a comedy, so
Yeah.
you're not going to get as many, awards and recognitions.
Not typically.
As you usually would for like a drama or,
Yeah.
action movie or something. But it did win MTV Music Awards Best Comedic Performance.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, you got this duo, it has to.
Well, it won Best Comedic Performance for Jim Carrey.
Sure.
He was also nominated for his performance in Mask in the same category.
Oh, wow.
And then it also won Best Kiss
Ooh.
between Lauren Holly and Jim Carrey. Yeah, it is not steamy.
No.
It is gross.
That kiss is really, really bad.
But the two that announced that one were Chris Isaac and Cameron Diaz.
Mm-hmm.
And I had watched it just to see what he had to say about it and everything. And I remember now thinking how icky it was.
Right.
Because Chris Isaac forces a kiss on her and she's not, she's like, no, stop. And he did it anyway. That whole thing was
that
icky.
was really cringy.
Yeah. And I'm sure it was probably cringy for Jim Carrey too, because Cameron Diaz is a co-star on The Mask. Yeah.
Yep.
So, but it was also nominated for the best screen duo as well, which
Sure.
I feel like it should have won that one.
Yeah, that
personally.
Come on.
That's everybody talks about how the chemistry between the two of them on screen was just...
It was impeccable.
It was great. Yeah. I mean, you couldn't have gotten a better comedic duo. I mean, you think of comedic duos and, you think of some of the older ones back in the day.
Yeah.
But you don't have a lot of... I can't think of any comedic duos that are current day that
are really lasting so
No,
well.
like,
No, probably
yeah.
not.
But I would immediately think of Harry and Lloyd.
Yeah.
If somebody asked me.
Yeah, Harry and Lloyd, man, they kind of sit atop the comedy duo.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you go really old school, like you had said, I mean, Abbott and Costello or Laurel and Hardy, those sorts of things.
That's the ones I was talking about back in the day. You had lots of comedic duos that were just so good together. And I feel like they kind of had that same feeling.
Yeah. Yeah, they really did. They played off of each other so well.
As the other thing I thought was interesting, speaking of MTV Music Awards, as of 2001,
right?
Jim's total of 9 MTV Music Awards is the most won by any person.
MTV crowd loves Jim Carrey.
9. And not just for this film, but for other films he's done as well. I'm sure
of course. Yeah.
I don't know what other ones he had, but I'm sure for some of his other films he had.
For those golden popcorn buckets, it doesn't really matter, I think. I mean, good for him.
Yeah.
I mean, the film did get, as far as critical review, it was kind of sitting right in the middle. There were some critics who really enjoyed the film, some who just...
He don't like toilet humor. You're not going to like this film.
Yeah,
sorry, he's not.
Who was it? Roger Ebert said that the scene with the bird made him laugh
so hard. He said if the whole movie was like that, he'd have had a cardiac arrest.
But he for whatever reason found that scene really funny and the rest of it not. And I'll admit that scene is not the funniest.
It's not the funniest
in the film.
So you can't always take what these guys say. You have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
The whole PD line.
Yeah.
The kid that did it had said that was his Polly want a cracker.
Yeah.
He said, I came up with that.
Oh,
I improvised that. He was so proud of himself.
As you should be.
I was so proud of myself. And I'm like, well, Roger Ebert really liked it. So congratulations, kid. You did good.
You managed to get the laugh out of Roger Ebert. Right. That's an accomplishment.
That's an accomplishment. Didn't get you anywhere, but hey,
but
good on
still,
you.
Good for you, kid. Oh, man. Well, let's start talking a little bit more about the things we found fun surrounding the film, in the film, and see what we can find about the little trivia bits surrounding this.
Can we start by talking about how the movie even happened?
Yeah, please. Let's do. Start at the beginning.
Start at the beginning. All right. I'm so excited.
Let's do it.
It's an interesting story.
All right, take us down that road.
So the script was originally called Dust to Dust.
Mm-hmm.
That was the original screenplay. And it was finished by Peter Farrelly and his buddy, Benny Yellen. Who did you say wrote it or started it?
So,
because there's a little bit of conflicting information about that, correct?
I found a lot of conflicting info as far as the precise events, but from what I understand, and anyone please correct me if I'm wrong on this.
Yes, please.
John Hughes
started it, like 50 pages
like 50
of it.
pages.
Yeah.
And he got it to the Farrelly brothers and said, just finish it. Eventually, they shopped it around. It couldn't get sold anywhere, so they changed names, blah, 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 blah. They finally said, hey, they've reworked the script, can we shop this around some more? And he said, yeah, fine. John Hughes said, that's great, just don't put my name on it.
Too bad,
yeah,
so sad.
No kidding, right? Okay, so I'm sorry. No, please.
Totally I remember we were talking about that, and I was like, maybe we should at least mention that maybe happened, because but this was in the interview, and I can't remember if that came up or not. So,
right.
But it was given to Eddie Murphy.
For the role.
No.
Right? No.
The script was given to Eddie Murphy.
Okay.
By Bobby's then girlfriend, who used it as an excuse to go meet Eddie at his home that he was residing next to, where her parents lived.
Oh.
So her parents lived next to Eddie Murphy. She wanted an excuse to go over there to meet him.
Wow.
So she said, I'll take the script over. So she took the script over to his house. So Bobby didn't think that Eddie had even read it. And then one day he was watching the Letterman show, and the guest star was Eddie Murphy. And he was telling David about a movie he wanted to do based on a script he read called Dust to Dust.
Uh-huh.
And he said he was an idiot. He didn't write his contact information on it. There's no way for Eddie Murphy to contact him about the script. His girlfriend and his girlfriend's parents were in Europe on vacation. So Eddie Murphy couldn't go over to the house to contact them.
Right.
course, this was in the days when we didn't really have cell phones readily available.
They weren't really prominent.
Not really, no. And so he actually called the studio himself and was like, hey, I'm the guy who wrote that.
Uh-huh.
And it was Eddie Murphy Productions is what he called.
Okay.
And so he had 6 months left at Columbia University to finish his degree. And Eddie Murphy had him graduated early so that he could leave early, go to LA, and start his life out there with his new script.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right.
The screenplay then became Go West, and then they tried to call it Dumb and Dumber, but then they had to change that title because none of the agents would deliver their script because it was called Dumb and Dumber.
Kind of an odd title to shop around.
So then they changed the title from Dumb and Dumber to A Power Tool Is Not a Toy.
Which is pretty intriguing.
I think it's the dumbest title I've ever.
I do too, but
it's so dumb.
It would make me look at it.
Yeah, and I guess that at the time, back in the 90s, it was trendy, late 80s, early 90s. It was a trendy sounding name.
Yeah, sure. Man.
So once the script was started to be picked up by people and read, they decided to change it back.
Uh-huh.
So they just had to get it in people's hands and reading it, and then they changed it back to Dumb and Dumber. And of course, it's gone through many iterations since Dust to Dust.
Sure.
It probably was not the same exact script, but it had a very similar premise.
Yeah, I do recall reading that the original concept for Dust to Dust was still two idiots working together, but a very different premise. Yeah. They had just over 100 actors turn down the role for the movie. We had talked about that. It took them like 4 years to come up with the casting because they just kept getting turned down. I mean, the script was being written for 4 years, but during that whole time, they were still looking for people to cast in this movie. Yeah, I mean, who were some of the people that they had tried shopping around to? You want to give us a bit of that list?
I wrote a bunch of them down. I didn't write all of them down because there were so
that
many.
List would go on for forever. But just give us a few highlights.
So there's Steve Martin and Martin Short turned down, I think, the part of Lloyd. Nicolas Cage was too busy shooting Leaving Las Vegas, so he wasn't able to do it. One of your favorites.
Yeah, I do like that movie.
The Farrellys actually entertained the idea of bringing in the Coreys. Corey Feldman and Corey Haim.
Yeah.
Corey Feldman playing Lloyd and Corey Haim playing Harry. But New Line Cinema CEO Robert Shea wouldn't allow that because he didn't think they were relevant anymore at the time.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Woody Harrelson actually would have been in it had he not lost a game of pool with Pete Farrelly.
Right.
So they actually had a bet to see. He's like, I'll be in it, but you got to beat me in pool.
Right.
And he didn't win. They were actually roommates, I believe, too, at one time. And he said he was roommates with Woody Harrelson. And at the time, Woody Harrelson was really not doing very well. He was not successful. So they kind of, they probably had like a kinship there.
I feel like I could have seen him in a role.
Oh, I could have seen him in that. Yeah. He had done great.
Yeah.
I think I have a couple. Oh, Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
Ben Stiller. Eddie Murphy was also considered
as well.
And Mike Myers. Do you have any others that are of note? Like I said, I didn't write them all down, but
like Chris Elliott and Rob Lowe. I mean,
the list goes on and on. These are all stars that they had on the list that they were supposed to try to get, and they all said no, or their agents were like, hell no.
Yeah, either real big talent at the time or at least fairly well-known comedians, all who have been fairly established at the point, trying to get into this role, or at least the producers were trying to get them into these roles, and it was not happening.
But one of the producers finally gave the script to Jim Carrey.
Mm-hmm.
And the Farrelly said it was like he immediately understood the role of the script. And that was kind of when they decided that's kind of who they wanted to have for this movie.
The white guy from In Living Color.
Yes. They actually originally offered him only $350,000 to do the movie.
Right.
That was their original offer. And Jim Carrey passed and said, no, I want $400,000. And they're like, well, we don't want to give you $400,000. Yeah. So they kind of waited on that. And then Ace Ventura came out. And it was a huge success. And so the producers came back and they're like, all right, we'll give you $400,000. Jim was like, no.
Too late, pal.
I want $500,000. And the producers said no to $500,000. They're like, we're not going to give you that much money.
Right.
So another week went by and Ace Ventura was number one again.
Uh-huh.
So they told Jim, all right, we'll give you $500,000. And Jim shot back and he's like, no, I want $750,000. So long story short, it got up to $7 million, and that's what he got paid.
That's an intense negotiation.
Yeah. Well, if they had just, given him what he asked for at the very
Initially.
beginning, they would have been out $400,000, not $7 million. Yeah, that was them sitting on their hands and not just grabbing the bull by the horns, man.
Sometimes you just got to take a chance on that negotiation and take the lowball offer, man.
Yeah. I mean, to their credit, the Farrellys were extremely happy that he got the $7 million because they feel like every actor should get paid any ounce of what they can get paid. And if that's what they were willing to pay him, they were so happy.
Oh, yeah.
On the other note, they weren't real happy what, Jeff Daniels got paid. But,
no, that's completely understandable.
Yeah.
And I mean, in my opinion, the producers and CEOs can go shove it up their ass.
Yeah.
But
so that's how they were trying to get him to not take the job, was by, it's so sad.
Yeah, it's the manipulation of people that are in charge of money is incredible. Yeah, I'm like you say, I'm glad Jim Carrey got what he was worth. I mean, he probably should have been worth even more than that, given how much he brought to this film.
Yeah.
But absolutely, Jeff Daniels was worth more than the $50,000 that he got.
Ridiculous. They should have at least offered him the $400 they were going to they were supposed to give Jim at the beginning.
Yeah, give him a little bit of that extra. Yeah, I mean, what a kind of back and forth little start for this film.
Yeah.
It took so long to get the script in hand and then to find the right actors and then to get the money paid.
I feel like this is a really good example of tenacity and sticking to something and not letting something go.
Yeah.
Because despite all of the stuff they went through, they kept going.
Yeah, they did.
They could have given up. They could have thrown the towel in. They could have said, this is taking too long. This is costing too much money. But they just kept going. Yeah. And it paid off.
Yeah, the determination went, man.
Yeah. And then really surrounding yourselves with people that believe in you too, because you don't have that, then you're not going to have anybody doing any. I mean, the things that had to line up to get this to all come together. It's just ridiculous.
It sounds like it was such a heartache along the way.
Yeah. So that's how Dumb and Dumber happened.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a long and storied history there. I did also kind of want to mention that we're talking about the old comedy duos of the past. Mm-hmm. The names Harry and Lloyd were in, I guess, homage to the silent era actor Harold Lloyd.
Silent comedic actor.
Yes, of course.
Yes, he was also in comedies. Yep, Harold Lloyd.
So just kind of another little throwback to the comedy of the past, which, I mean, it was very appropriate because he often did play quite the buffoon. Mm-hmm. So to give the buffoonish name to these two far down the line following in his footsteps, it's a fun little throwback. Mm-hmm. Oh, also, as far as casting goes, so the character Seabass. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Very, very notable in the film, even though he's not in it much.
Yeah.
Really notable, very memorable.
He's an interesting character.
Yeah.
I've heard him in interviews before. He's a really neat guy.
So originally, the role was to go to Roger Clemens, who's a baseball player. Mm-hmm. But at the time, he was wrapped up in other engagements and he couldn't take the role. So the Farrelly brothers, being from Boston and fans of the Boston Bruins, they managed to rope Cam Neely, who was a very notable star for the Boston Bruins and even in the NHL Hall of Fame. So, I mean, they managed to get a lot of really kind of unique casting for this film, I felt.
Yeah. It's kind of, I won't say important to note, but of note, the Farrelly brothers in almost all their movies like to put sports players in. I think they've used Brett Favre before as well, and a couple other. There's a couple others. That's the only one I can think of because I'm from Wisconsin.
Right, of course, yeah.
But they're really well known for putting sports players in their movies. So
they kind of
something they do.
Putting together all their passions, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In the scene where they scam, there's a scene where they scam Seabass.
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of Seabass.
Lloyd says that he saw it in a film.
Yeah, the whole thing where he tells the waitress that Seabass is offering to pay their tab.
Yeah.
Seabass and the fellas offered to pick up our check. They said just put it on their tab.
Yeah. So the film that he's actually talking about is Something Wild from 1986.
Yeah.
And the actor that did the scam in that film was actually Jeff Daniels.
So
I thought that was an interesting nod to Jeff Daniels in that piece.
Yeah, I thought that was fun when later on in the just after that scene, and they're talking, Harry and Lloyd are talking in the van. That Harry's like,
So what happened?
So the guy tricks some sucker into picking up his tab and gets away with it scot-free? No. In the movie, they catch up to him half-mile down the road and slit his throat. It was a good one.
And then Harry just books it. So I'm not stopping. Yeah, that's a fun little nod, I think.
Yeah.
Being that is a scene that had me laughing quite a bit. One of my other favorite scenes is when Jim Carrey's Lloyd is leaving a convenience store, and there's three youngsters kind of just hanging out outside, drinking big gulps. And Lloyd comes out and says,
"Hey, guys." "Oh, big gulps, huh? All right. Well, see you later."
It turns out that those young people were there just watching the filming, and that scene was not in the film at all. It wasn't in the script. Jim Carrey completely improvised it. They filmed it anyway and left it in. So I thought that was kind of a fun little nod to just, hey.
They weren't even stand-ins, or what are they called?
No, not extras.
Extras at all,
they were just some people watching the filming. Yeah. So kind of as another thing that I feel is worth pointing out, something I may have noticed in the past but completely forgotten that I've noticed, and is actually pretty obvious, so I don't know how I've not noticed it before. And it was actually while we watched it together for this episode that you had pointed it out. The opening credits contain intentional misspellings.
And I never noticed it before.
Yeah. So like I say, we may have noticed it in the past and just not really noticed it.
Like just went, it's Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, it's just a thing that goes with this movie. Duh.
But for whatever reason, this time around, I was like, all that stuff is spelled wrong.
Yeah, like producers is spelled with two O's and an S instead
Production
of a
has
U
got a
and
K
C.
in it or something.
Music has a Z and a K.
Yeah.
And photography, costume designer, all sorts of different fun little credit listings.
Yeah.
So it seems like they had a lot of fun with just being random in this movie, which is great because that's what this film is for.
The Farrelly brothers, I think, admitted to 15% of this movie was improv.
Yeah.
Something along those lines.
I'm surprised it's not more, honestly, given Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
But I do know that they allowed a lot of room for, especially Jim Carrey, but also for Jeff Daniels to just have fun and improvise and do fun things.
So there's two scenes that I think are the funniest scenes in this movie.
All right,
for
lay
me.
it on me.
And they're both improv scenes. And one of them is,
"Hey, want to hear the most annoying sound in the world?"
so Jeff Daniels wasn't expecting it at all when he did
imagine not.
So you can actually see him crack up right before the camera flips back over to Jim. You can see him crack up a little bit, because it's like, and then he goes back to him and he's doing the same sound, but he was not expecting that. So, and then of course the guy in the middle is just like,
just totally like, get me the hell out of here. I took the wrong role. That is so obnoxious. We're I don't know if we should use that one.
Yeah, we may spare you that one, actually. Yeah, you can go watch
that one yourself.
Yeah. There's also a scene in the bar where he's talking with, what do they call her? She ends up being
Athletic Beauty.
Athletic Beauty,
like
I think to cover up who she really is. Yeah. But he's talking to her in the bar, and he's getting ready to leave. And as he's leaving, he looks at a prop on the wall.
Yeah.
And the prop on the wall says, "Man walks on the moon." And and he kind of looks at it, and he says,
"No way. That's great.
We landed on the moon!"
And he walks out, and the woman who played the Athletic Beauty or whatever, she said that everybody was just having the hardest time.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Not cracking up laughing. I read that you could see her cracking up, but I couldn't see her crack up laughing at all. But man, I would have lost it. So.
Oh man, that's it would be so hard for me. I'm really prone to laughing and smiling at just the smallest, stupidest things. It'd be so hard for me to keep my composure on sets, especially with people that have
that much comedic presence.
Creative, yeah. Oh man, I wouldn't last.
So coincidentally, Jim Carrey went on to play Andy Kaufman in the movie Man on the Moon. Oh,
that's right, he did. Yeah,
in 1999.
Yeah, all because he noticed this prop on the wall.
That prop stayed on that wall. It's still there to this day.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. What is the motel that they were in? It was the one that was in The Shining.
Oh yeah, so the Danbury Hotel is the name of the hotel in the film, but they used the Stanley Hotel.
Yeah, he actually spent the night in one of the rooms at the Stanley Hotel, and one of the guys who does the tour, I guess, said that he tells the story anyways, and I don't know how much truth there is to it. But 3 hours after Jim Carrey fell asleep, he ran out of the hotel and did not want to go back in that room again. He stayed in the infamous room 217.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and did not want to go back in that room again. And he says, to this day, Jim doesn't tell anybody about it, doesn't want to talk about it.
And how much of that is either the man embellishing or how much of that is Jim Carrey just being Jim Carrey and creating a story for himself?
Yeah, that could be it too.
So there's a lot to wonder about there, but still it's a fun story nonetheless.
It is a fun story nonetheless. I mean, I'd want to stay in the hotel too.
Hey, I'm ready to go to the Stanley Hotel anytime.
Yeah.
I'm a skeptic by nature, so good luck, Stanley.
Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, what else have you got about good old Dumb and Dumber?
Jeff Daniels, I was listening to an interview with Jeff Daniels, and he talks a lot about a lot of other actors that come up to him and tell him how funny he was in Dumb and Dumber. And he said it really surprises him because he never really thought that people... So, for example, Clint Eastwood came up to him on a golf course once and told him, I can really relate to that toilet scene where you're pooping on the toilet.
Right, the laxative.
Yeah, the laxative scene. And Jeff Daniels, when Clint Eastwood came up to him, of course, Jeff Daniels was like, oh God, here he comes over. He's going to say something. And he starts talking about Dumb and Dumber. He's like, oh man, he's going to,
going to rip me apart for it.
No, I can really relate to that. He said, that happened to me.
Oh no.
I was on a date with my girlfriend and ate something wrong and did the exact same thing. He said, I really related to that scene in the movie. So I think that's one thing that surprised Jeff Daniels is that a lot of people come up to him and tell them not only that they love the movie, but that they can relate to it in some way because we're all a little dumb sometimes.
Yeah, we all do stupid things.
Right? So we can relate to some of that a little bit.
Maybe not
occasionally.
Entirely with the character, but we can relate to a few things here and there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, who hasn't gotten their tongue stuck to something cold once or twice?
It's probably happened to me when I was a kid, or at least I thought about it.
Yeah, right.
There's also a scene where Harry tells Lloyd to throw salt over his shoulder.
Oh, yeah, the sea bass scene.
Yeah. It's actually similar to a scene in the Three Stooges short Beer and Pretzels
All right.
from 1933.
Back in the day.
Ted Healy throws a salt shaker over his shoulder and causes a fight in that scene. So, interestingly, the Farrelly brothers went on to direct the Three Stooges in 2012.
Yeah. Yeah, there's the connections to old movies for the Farrelly brothers seems to continue to ring.
It's deep.
I don't know for certain, but I could only hazard a guess that they've seen a few really classic comedy things.
I can only hazard a guess. There's also another scene that I think just made me crack up laughing. It's when they're in the hotel and they're wiping their faces with the money and they're crying.
Oh, right, yeah.
Pacific Bell commercial.
Yeah.
Did you know that Jonathan Brandis is the kid?
Yeah, little tiny Jonathan Brandis.
I didn't know that.
You didn't know that?
No.
Oh, no.
So when I read that, I was like, I got to watch it. So I watched it and I'm like, sure as shit, there he is. Little
J-Bra.
Yeah. Not with us anymore. It's sad.
Yeah.
I only have one other stupid piece of trivia for you all.
All right, well, let's lay it on.
I feel like since we're doing Dumb and Dumber, I can...
Let's put it in here and we'll use it or not.
So there's a scene where they're riding that mini bike.
Yes.
And he's got snot all over his face and he gets peed on and...
I gotta stop and go to the bathroom. Just go, man. Oh. That's really warm.
I know what the model of that bike is.
Oh, you do you?
And it's kind of funny.
Okay, give it to me.
It's a Taco 22. All right, that's all I needed to say.
All right, yeah.
You can go on to something more important now.
Yeah, I do like that model name though.
I thought it was good.
Who is the marketing automotive genius who's like, hey,
this
we're
looks
gonna make
ridiculous.
This motorbike. This is going to be called the Taco 22.
Wonder what tacos 1 through 21 was like.
Yeah, I mean, did they crumble? I know when I try making taco shells, I'm not very good at it, and I'll either burn them or break them.
No, this was the best one.
So this was the 22nd iteration was the best.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Took a long time to get there to master that taco, but they finally got it.
They got it.
Way to go, Taco 22. 80 miles to the gallon on this hog. So, just a few more things to mention as we're kind of wrapping up here. we would be remiss without saying that following the success of this film, there was, in 1995, an animated series that was produced. Didn't last long, only a single season, and it's pretty obvious why. The script was written by Dumb and Dumber co-writer Bennett Yellen, but he was the only connection to the film aside from just the property itself. No other actors had reprised their roles.
Oh.
Farrelly Brothers didn't come back.
Yeah.
The Van Nuys came back, even though obviously they sold it.
Took me a second to remember what that meant. But
The
yes,
Van Nuys?
I know. Yeah.
Here's
Stop.
Brandon using absurd, ridiculous terms again. So the canine van comes back,
Okay.
even though they sold it in Aspen
Yeah.
in favor of the Taco 22.
You gotta get it back.
They got that back, as well as a female purple pet beaver
Okay.
named Kitty.
Oh my God. Can we just not dial
Should we
in?
move on to
Yeah,
the next
we
thing?
should move on.
Okay.
Yep.
Moving on to the next thing.
I do love the color purple though.
While we are embarrassed for Dumb and Dumber, let's continue that by saying in 2003, there was a prequel to Dumb and Dumber made called When Harry Met Lloyd.
Another
Yeah.
failure.
And again, nobody came back for this one. New actors. It was supposed to take place, I think, like 8 years before the original film. So even not that far previous, but completely different actors. None of the writers came back. It was the whole film was pretty well hated by critics and audiences alike. It didn't perform well. I'm surprised just based on its performance that the studios even considered allowing a sequel to Dumb and Dumber in 2014, but they did. This time it seems like they allowed it probably with a caveat saying, hey, we're only doing the sequel if everybody comes back. And they did. They got Jim Carrey, they got Jeff Daniels, the Farrelly brothers, and even Bennett Yellen came back to all help bring the Dumb and Dumber true sequel to life, Dumb and Dumber 2, with just one O and no W. Not only that, they managed to get the distinguished return of the character Billy, who's the blind kid who bought the headless parakeet, and Seabass. So when they're bringing everybody back, they really got the whole shebang. Brady Blum and Cam Neely, respectively, on those two. The film did fine commercially. It didn't blow it out of the water like the original Dumb and Dumber did, but it did.
Number 2 never does.
Yeah, it did make plenty of money back, so it was considered a financial success. And the reviews were marginal. They're fine.
Sure.
It was not going to win the top rounds of acclaim. Probably will never hit the cult comedy status, but it's fine.
Well, can't ask for much more than that. I mean, you can, but you know,
Yeah, no,
that's a good place to be.
Yeah. So, I mean, the last thing that I have to mention is really the only thing I would put in the spoilers territory. And really, I think this is the first time I don't even mind not giving a big spoiler alert on this one because
Okay.
it's really not super huge.
Okay.
But I will, however, say if you don't want to hear something about the ending of the film, get out now and come back later.
You're going to talk about alternate endings?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Well, I put that in my spoilers section.
Did you? Okay, so let's do this. If you don't want to hear spoilers for Dumb and Dumber, ever so critical spoilers, things that'll break your mind if you hear and have not seen this film, it's time to go exit now. Go watch the movie.
Man, you are one pathetic loser. No offense.
Okay, I think we've given people enough time to exit. Nobody left this time.
Oh, weird.
Nobody left,
All
so I
right.
think we're fine.
Okay.
Go ahead and why don't you start?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong or if you've got anything to add, okay?
Okay.
But I found 2 alternate endings.
What you got?
With kind of like, I don't know, something else in there too. But the first ending was supposed to end where they were offered an opportunity to work for Barney, the hotel manager, as bellhops on a part-time basis.
Right.
Basically a couple hours a week.
Yeah.
That's all they had to do. And they could live there for free. And they turned it down.
Of
like
course they
idiots. Yeah. The second alternate ending was Barney offering the 2 friends a job babysitting his grandson, who was coincidentally Billy
Oh,
from apartment 4C, the blind kid that Lloyd sold Petey to.
wow. That one I genuinely didn't read anything about. So that's interesting. Okay.
Yep. They were both scripted and filmed, but both were scrapped actually. And the film just simply ended with the pair both going home on foot.
Sounds for the best.
They thought it was amusing, but, just wasn't good enough.
Nothing special.
So that's why they came up with the ending for the bikini scene.
You'll have to excuse my friend. He's a little slow. The town is back that way.
When they went to shoot it, the studio wanted Lloyd and Harry to actually get on the bus for like a typical happy
Right, yeah.
ending to the scene.
Send the boys off happy after this really bad misadventure.
So this is kind of like the third alternate ending, was that they actually get on the bus. And Peter Farrelly was like, you know, the movie's called Dumb and Dumber, not Dumb and Dumberer, where they get smart at the end.
Right.
So they're too dumb to get on the bus.
Yeah.
Studio said, well, let's shoot it both ways. That's their peacemaker.
Compromise.
Yeah. They had a feeling that it was a trap. So they went to Jim and they told him about what the studio wanted to do. And Jim said, I'm not stepping on that bus. I won't do it.
Good.
That's in quotes. I won't do it.
Stick to your guns, man.
And the Farrellys were like, okay, we all agree. So they never shot the other scene. When they went back to the studio, they told them they ran out of daylight and they couldn't do it.
Nice.
So not only did they not do it, but they totally lied to them about it at the end.
Good.
Yeah.
Good,
Just so
as
they
they
didn't have
should.
to do it. But truly, like that, it's a trap.
Yeah.
Like they just wanted you to do both ways so that in the end they could pick the one they wanted.
Exactly right.
If they don't have the one they wanted, they can't use it, can they?
Yeah, no, you can't get it anywhere because it doesn't exist.
I love that.
Yeah, I think that's a great little fact of the actor and the writer directors sticking together, saying, no, screw the studio. We know what's best
If I don't do
here.
it, they can't, what are they going to do, fire me?
Yeah, exactly right. We've already pretty much, I'm sure they'd probably finished most of their filming at the time.
Yeah.
So they're not going to hire somebody else that after they've already paid Jim Carrey this incredible amount. They're not going to go back on that. So give the man what he wants.
Right.
That's
do you have
all.
anything to add to that, or
No, that's all I've got.
I think the other two endings would have been so sad.
Yeah, the other
So
ones
boring.
just wouldn't have fit.
Yeah, and getting on the bus, they're absolutely right. Why would they get on the bus?
Yeah.
They're dumb.
They're stupid. That's the whole point.
We need 2 oil boys to help us. Blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, well, you're in luck. There's a town back that way.
That way.
That was so much more appropriate.
Oh, it was so good.
Yeah.
That was let's admit that there's really not a good way to end this movie.
No.
But that was a really respectable way to end that story.
Jeff Daniels even said, a lot of times he has a hard time with the ends of films because he gets so attached to his characters.
Right.
And I often think like, what did they do after that? You never know.
No.
And he goes, that's the beauty of it. Like you can decide what you think they did. He said, but that was one character I kind of was like, I wonder what they did do, and I do too.
There is the sequel, which comes a bit later, but
I don't think at the time they were thinking that was going to be happening.
This is probably in their minds a one and done sort of thing.
Well, I don't think any of them knew what the success was going to be like.
Couldn't have imagined.
There was an extended version of the scene where Harry gets his tongue stuck in the frost.
Oh, yeah.
And Shay is at the hillside and tries to shoot him, and she misses. And she hits a mime in the hand.
Oh.
I mean, I can see why they cut that out. It's so superfluous and doesn't have any
And it doesn't fit the mood of the film.
Yeah, so they got rid of that one. And then the other thing I thought was really interesting is that in both the theatrical version and the director's cut, Petey, Harry's pet bird, gets killed on screen. However, in the extended version, which is what we saw, Petey is heard squawking, and the sound effect of Petey's neck is being snapped by Joe Mentoliano, or Mental.
Mental, yeah.
You can hear that in the background.
Yeah. There's a few scenes in the extended cut that I'm really glad that they left out of the theatrical version.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like the homophobic jokes were a little much in this film. There was really only, I think, like 2 sequences that were mildly offensive.
Talking about the one in the bathtub?
The one in the hot tub, yeah.
It's mildly offensive, but it's also because they're stupid
just so fucking
that
stupid.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's ridiculous.
But it's best just left on the floor, honestly. Right. It doesn't add anything to the film, so it was, I think, purposefully left out of the theatrical cut, and for good reason.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also a scene, the little old lady scene, where he gets all of his stuff stolen.
Yeah.
They actually don't show that scene. There's a couple international versions of this movie. They won't show that scene. And I couldn't find any reason why. I don't know what the reason is, but they don't show that scene.
Wow.
In some of these international versions.
Maybe the rest of the world doesn't want to realize that an old woman can steal all your stuff.
Little old ladies he was so mean to her.
He was a dick.
Yeah,
he deserved it.
He got what was coming.
She was not necessarily a mean old lady. She was a smart old lady.
Yeah,
Teach that jackass a lesson.
Teaching him a lesson.
Well, I mean, that wraps up what I've got. Have you got anything else?
Yeah, no, I think that's it.
Well, Leia, I think barring anything else, we're going to shut down the lobby once again. But thank you for our listeners for giving us your time and spending it with us here. Oh, Leia, check it out. I finally got this case open.
Well, you've been working on it for so long.
I know it's been a minor distraction. I've tried not to let it show through. But, Leia, have a peek.
Nope.
Don't open it too much. But there's a bunch of cash in here.
Yeah.
Shh.
Shopping spree.
That's shopping spree indeed. I think, as the law states, it's finders keepers.
Losers weepers.
Losers weepers. So we got to get out of here and go spend it before someone else can find it and keep it.
Okay, yeah, we don't want them to be doing that.
No, because the law is the law.
It is.
And I refuse to break the law. But before we go, I suppose we should at least take care of the last piece of business here.
Mm-hmm.
If our listeners would like to interact with us or the show, you can find me, Brandon McLeavy, on Facebook as Brandon McLeavy. It'll be the profile picture with the frosty beverage. Or find me on Instagram, much more easily, BrandJNRP. And Leia, where can our listeners find you?
You can find me, Leia McLeavy, at LM Nerd Room on Facebook and Instagram as well.
And of course, you can find the show at The Movie Theater Lobby on Facebook and YouTube. And at The Movie Lobby on Instagram, because as I always say, The Movie Theater Lobby was too long for Insta. And you can find the show as well at themovietheaterlobby@gmail.com. And let's not forget themovietheaterlobby.com. We'd love to hear what you all think about the movies we talk about. Anything we get wrong, feel free to send us corrections. Anything you want to add, maybe some fun little things you missed that you think are super cool.
Just say hi.
Just say hi. Send us your memories of the movies. Let's chat a little bit.
Let's chat.
Just as a final quick acknowledgement, please stop by your pod service of choice, Apple Podcast or Spotify, Podcast Addict, whatever you use. Give us a rating and review. Please send us some love. Help us get some notoriety out there.
Only if you like us.
Only if you like us. But even if you don't and you just feel like maybe you want to help somebody out, give us a nice review and some stars and send us up the charts or something. But yeah, so with all of that administrative business out of the way, we will bid you adieu a third time. Don't forget all your snacks and stuff. You paid for them.
I don't
Might as well take them with you.
I'm not your mom.
Yeah, we got a trash can on the way out. Just dump it in there. And with that, we'll see you. Thank you again.
Thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, Leia.
There's really nothing to worry about, Mary. Statistically, they say you're more likely to get killed on the way to the airport. In a head-on crash or flying off a cliff or getting trapped under a gas truck. That's the worst. I have this cousin.
Lloyd, could you keep your eyes on the road, please?
Oh, yeah. Good thinking. Can't be too careful. A lot of bad drivers out there.